What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and prepared for a new day, prepared to move on, right? Like this is AD. This is after death. If you look at a trade of a superstar player in that capacity, the Dallas Cowboys, of course, trading Micah Parsons away on Thursday to the Green Bay Packers. We have a lot to get to relative to that, to discuss kind of the aftermath of it all. We had a live show I did on Thursday in the immediate aftermath of it, but sometimes you sleep on things, you have some different thoughts, some more information comes out. So we're here today to get to that and kind of tie everything together as we look to put this chapter of Dallas Cowboys football in its place. And obviously 6 days from now, watch this team begin their 2025 regular season. It's a number of different emotions to have going on all at once. But my name is RJ Ochoa, and I cover the Cowboys, and I've been doing so professionally for about 10 years now. And it's quite literally my job to help you do that. So you can follow me on social media. X, Twitter, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Go like my Facebook page, be my friend on LinkedIn, whatever they call it over there. Like this video, subscribe to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. Daily videos, live shows, recorded stuff all the time, interviews, all sorts of fun stuff happening left and right here on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. And if it isn't obvious, obviously check out blogontheboys.com for the latest and greatest in terms of Dallas Cowboys news, discussion, and analysis from myself and our talented staff over at BTB. Christopher Summers chiming in on the chat earlier saying Jerry is an idiot. Now, sometimes there's a big deal like this in sports, not just the Cowboys, not just the NFL. Sometimes there's a big trade. And then, as the dust settles and as we gather more information, as we learn more about it, it kind of helps the cause, right? We're allowed to kind of see, this is why they did it, right? Like I can kind of understand that. And maybe you feel that way. Tar Heel Cowboy says here, good move, Jerry. Glad we didn't pay him $47 million. Hey, Tar Heel, good luck with week 1 of college football this week. We'll see how the Bill Belichick era ultimately gets going. Cotton, I was going to put Cotton, says we will see. And Jesus Mills says only good thing that could come with the trade is for the Cowboys to suck the next couple of years so they can pick top 10 with their own picks plus the Packers ones. Now, I know a lot of people feel conflicted or feel whatever about Micah Parsons. I don't know that anybody's rooting for Micah in Green Bay. Nobody wants the Packers to do well is maybe the best way to put it. I think we all want the best for Micah individually. But we do have 2 teams to root for every week, right? We get to root for the Cowboys and then whoever's playing the Packers because we obviously want these draft picks to be as high as possible. AJ says, RJ, I just want the season to start and enjoy my Sunday. Is that too much to ask? It's not, AJ. This is supposed to be a fun week. This is a really popular week to do like your fantasy drafts and stuff. And I mentioned college football starting. My Sun Devils and Gators are going to keep me going tomorrow. But it will pass and we'll find our rhythm. I do promise you that. But we do have to, kind of handle this. And that's what we're doing here together. Christopher says, honestly, didn't get enough for Parsons. Should have gotten a lot more picks. Okay, so a few things here that we're going to talk about today. And the first has to do with the details of what Micah Parsons is getting from the Green Bay Packers. Now, Micah's deal is $47 million per year. That's the way it's being discussed. That's the way it's being presented. But once we get the full details, once we get the kind of post-mortem, the autopsy, if you will, on the contract, probably somebody connected to the Green Bay Packers, that will be the moment we can fully take away what Micah is taking from the Packers and measure it up against what the Cowboys reportedly offered him. Now, this particular information, by the way, Keeping It Geeb says, do I think Kenny Clark can make a difference on the run defense? Absolutely. I completely agree with the idea that Kenny Clark can help. I keep calling him Kenny Rogers. It's just like a slip. I think I'm certain I've done that on the show, but I definitely did it on social media a few times. Lauren says, I still have no issue with the trade, LOL. I'm glad to know, Lawrence, that you're holding strong respect. And Nardo says, my next day thought is we still got fleas. Okay, so we have some clips to play. First up is Nick Eatman of DallasCowboys.com on 105.3 The Fan on Friday morning. Now, this discussion to kind of set the tone for you is about the particulars of the Micah deal relative to what he may or may not have been offered from the Cowboys. Sometimes these things, it's important to note, Micah had 1 year remaining on his rookie contract, and he got a 4-year extension from the Green Bay Packers. So you can call it a 5-year deal overall, right? You take the 1 year that is the extension, the remaining year on the rookie contract, and the 4-year extension. So it's a 5-year total deal. You're just kind of adding them and adding the numbers together to make it sound like a 5-year deal. It's all about presentation so that agents and teams can look and display what they want, what information they want, so that the narrative they want can get out there. This isn't me tinfoil hatting or conspiracy theorying or being on anyone's side. That's just the way this game goes. And so I give you this context because this is some interesting information. I am very much of the opinion that the Cowboys messed this up, but this is, worth a listen nonetheless. Let's go ahead and see what Nick had to say to the boys at the Fan.
Is 47 a number that you would have been willing to go to? Or when you heard last night, it made me feel a little bit better that this wasn't just stubbornness over picking up a phone, right? That Jerry said, look, y'all know what this is about, right? I finished with 40. They were starting with it. Now that he's gotten 47, Nick, do you feel better? You understand why they did it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was out of the principle too. Is we're going to negotiate. We're going back and forth. We get into this. You want this. I want this. Boom. All right, I'll go here. I'll go up to there, and then boom, and then let's go to 40 or 41, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden, like, hold on, let me. My agent called, and then the agent comes in. I thought that was a very telling statement. Is they started where I stopped, and that's not how. I don't think anyone's gonna win over Jerry doing it that way. If that's how it went down. The numbers are interesting though. I still haven't figured out exactly. When you talk about new money. I'll say this: I don't believe the numbers are as far off as it's being reported. The 5 and the 4 is a big deal, but I was talking to a few people, and they were kind of saying when you really break it down on new money and what the contract was going to be, when you add in what they're getting right now, what his contract is right now, I think it was more the Cowboys were around 46. And they were at 47 as far as the new money goes. But when you factor it all in together with this year, I think the Packers, what they're doing is almost 42. It's like 41.8.
Yeah.
So, it's not, this is not a 41 and then all of a sudden they went to 47. I don't think that's accurate. I don't think the Packers are doing that either. I think there's a lot more to it here.
That was Nick Eatman of DallasCowboys.com on 105.3 The Fan on Friday morning, breaking down the new money situation with Micah Parsons, the Dallas Cowboys, Green Bay Packers. Obviously, the new money is with the Green Bay Packers, not the Dallas Cowboys. But to take a look and sort things, here is a tweet from Sean Sharif, obviously of The Fan, of Sean and RJ. So let's look at the tweet that Sean is quoting from Bobby Bell, a good friend of mine. Bobby says that Nick, this is Nick Eatman again of DallasCowboys.com. Nick is saying the reported 5-year, I'm going to read this very slowly here. I know I have a tendency to speak fast. I appreciate those of you who put up with it. I really am working on it. But so Ron DeDon asked this question. I'm going to put this up here before we get to the actual content here. That raises a good question. How do we think that Mike and his agent tried to pull the rug out from under Jerry versus Jerry having a valid argument, for lack of better words? Look, again, I think we can all understand the Cowboys made a mistake here, but we can parse through it, which is what we're trying to do. So this is Bobby clarifying what Nick said in the conversation. Nick is saying, these are Bobby's words here, the reported 5-year, $202.5 million contract offer had the $21.3 million fifth-year option baked in, which would mean the extension offer was 4 years for $181.2 million, which would average $45.3 million per year in new money. So if the math here is tabulated correctly, then the Green Bay Packers offered Micah Parsons, again, based on this math that could or could not be correct, only, again, I'm using that word very loosely here, only $45 million in new money, not the $47 million that is being reported. So if we go back to Sean's tweet, and I agree with this, by the way, he says, if this is true, and it was offered in March or April, Jerry Jones is completely off the hook as far as I'm concerned. I'm not willing to go as far as Sean here, but whatever, especially if the guarantee was higher than Green Bay. This would have been before all the insults and ugliness. Zero reason for Micah to not to take this if this is true. Now, the reason we're having this conversation is because it's possible. And again, we have to wait at the time of this conversation. We're chatting here on Friday afternoon. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon Central Standard Time. It's possible the Cowboys offer wasn't far off or was maybe even larger than the Packers in certain financial respects. Now, we don't know the guarantees, the total guarantees, those details are incredibly significant, certainly when it comes to the NFL and guaranteed for injury. And we have no idea what other potential clauses could or would or may or did not exist in any kind of offer that Dallas made or Green Bay made or whatever the case may be. But the point in this conversation is that maybe Dallas, and look, I'm all for roasting them because I think they have totally earned this here. Maybe they were not as far off as it sounds when you say something like, oh, Green Bay offered $47 million per year. I think this tweet is a great TLDR of the situation from Bob Sturm. And again, we don't know the full details of this, but Sturm is incredible, and I would advise everyone to trust him. Says Green Bay gets the player, talking about Micah here, on a 4-188. That's 4 years, $188 million. That's the new part of this, right? Because Micah is, as many people noted, under contract for 2025 by way of his rookie deal. So Green Bay gets the player on a 4-188 after 2025 at 121. So you merge those two together. That's 5 for 209. That's the totality of the deal, which according to Sturm is 41.8 in annual average value. I think 47 annual average value is a misleading number for the new franchise to consider. I believe Micah was asking for 45 AAV from Dallas at the end for 180. So again, this is all about presentation, and this is all about how you want to look at this. Did the Cowboys offer something similar to Micah Parsons? Did they have a financial offer that was the same or slightly lower, slightly more? Something like this, anything like this when it comes to contracts in the NFL really is a matter of beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Do you look at things from an AAV perspective, totaling the year in question? Obviously, Micah Parsons is under contract for 2025. And look at the extension as its own individual property and look at that AAV? Do you merge the two and look at the overall aggregate AAV? It really is up to you and the argument that you're trying to make. I think ultimately we can discern based on the fact that numbers aren't fully known or the details of the contract aren't fully known, what it could have involved, what it may have involved, what it did or did not involve. I think what we can ultimately conclude is that the money, the financials of this really were probably in the end insignificant. They probably were significant at one point in time, but the back and forth, the contentious nature of it all is what dissolved the relationship and led to Micah and his representation. Allegedly, this is just me trying to do this math, not numerical math, saying, you know what, even if the AAV, even if the guarantee, even if whatever is slightly different, we'd rather go that route because we're tired of this and the way it's gone, and we feel like this is the better path for us. Narda says, so all of our eggs are in the Dante Fowler basket. We can't stop the run or pass now. I would say that the Cowboys feel like they can stop the run. That's why they traded for Kenny Clark. I think they're better at stopping the run as a result of acquiring Kenny Clark for what it's worth. But those are just my 2 cents. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to get to. The second thing, speaking of Kenny Clark, Jerry Jones noted that, the deal was kind of coming together in the last second when the Cowboys had their press conference to announce this trade on Thursday evening. I almost said Monday evening. And very, very, very little of what Jerry said, or Steven said for that matter, on Thursday made sense or was good or helped the situation. But they did provide some information nonetheless. And some more information came out about this whole thing on Friday morning. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero went on NFL Network, obviously, and discussed this whole thing and had a piece of information that I found to be very interesting. Tom noted that this trade, according to him, was agreed to 3 days ago in principle in terms of the actual terms involved. 3 days ago at the time that we're having this conversation was on Tuesday, which calls into question the assembly of the 53-man roster for the Cowboys because roster cuts were due that day by 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Let's take a listen to the clip and continue our conversation.
Well, Jamie, this trade of Micah Parsons to the Packers sent shockwaves across the NFL. I know that in part because of how my phone was blowing up for a couple of hours after that deal became official. But this is not something that came together quickly. Ever since Micah Parsons publicly requested a trade back on August 1st, there had been calls from several different teams into the Cowboys about whether or not they would move Micah Parsons. Initially, it seemed as if people couldn't really tell whether Dallas was serious about this, but it escalated in recent days. This deal did not even get done between the Packers and Cowboys yesterday. This had been in place, from my understanding, along with Ian Rappaport and Jane Slater. This trade was locked in between the teams several days ago. This was all down to the contract and whether the Packers would do the type of deal that Micah Parsons would need to move on from the Cowboys after 4 years and head to Green Bay. They ended up doing that on a 4-year, $188 million contract extension. That's $47 million per year, by far making him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Even if you look at this from the Packers' perspective, because they also inherit the 5th-year option on Parsons' rookie contract, it's still $212 million over 5 years, a $42+ million per year average, which also would make him the highest paid quarterback, non-quarterback, by any measure. This is a monster deal for Micah Parsons and for a Packers team that really hasn't made this type of bold stroke in several decades. You think back to the trade in 1992, a first-round pick for Brett Favre. That's the last time they had traded a first-round pick, much less 2 first-round picks and their starting nose tackle to go get a player. Of course, the year after that, the Packers signed Reggie White as an early free agent, and that set the stage for a golden era of Packers football that really hasn't let up. The standard in Green Bay is Lombardi trophies. They feel like Micah Parsons is a difference maker. The standard in Dallas is also Lombardi trophies, something that they have not put in the case in several decades here. Jerry Jones, in speaking late last night at a press conference, referenced a variety of different things. He said, we need to stop the run. That explains the piece of Kenny Clark, the nose tackle, 30 years old now, but still a very good player, headed to Dallas. In fact, Jerry Jones said they didn't even engage with teams that didn't have a defensive tackle that they could include in the trade. Jerry also invoked the Herschel Walker trade, which, of course, was for a boatload of picks and players, which they turned into even more picks, used some of those on the cornerstones of the Cowboys dynasty in the mid-90s. You have a significant type of haul in terms of multiple first-round picks, as well as a nose tackle. You also now free up, Jamie, a whole lot of cash and cap space for years to come. As Jerry put it, we might not just get 3 players. There might be 4 or 5 good players that can help us.
All right, all due respect to Tom, that's enough. So first things first, we need to remember and keep these receipts, because if the Cowboys are inactive in free agency in 2026, if the Cowboys insist that the reason they are inactive is because they're storing up saving salary cap space for X, Y, or Z, then it's time to call them on their BS, because they told us in the past that the reason they were inactive in free agency over the last few years was because they had to store up and save because they were going to pay Micah Parsons a whole hell of a lot of money. Well, that didn't exactly go according to plan. That being said, the Cowboys have now written a check that they are going to have to cash, quite literally, because the Cowboys have told us, hey, we just freed up all this salary cap space. Okay, this was really dumb, but we are definitely going to hold your feet to this fire. If you are not active in free agency, if you try to blame it on Tyler Smith or George Pickens or Deron Blaine or Brandon Aubrey or whoever the hell else, we will remember. I know the Cowboys think that they're powerful enough that they can say anything and everything they want and nobody will check them on it, but people check them all the time. People remember. Everything they say is documented for the entire world to know and throw back in their face. The problem with this whole saga and franchise these days is that they don't do anything about it. They just accept that they were wrong and hope that everybody moves on. That being said, back to the point of this conversation, the point we brought this up. The point that I brought this up with was that Dallas and Green Bay reportedly agreed to terms on this trade on Tuesday. Now, we have no idea what this exactly means. Could the Cowboys and Packers have agreed to terms on the trade on Tuesday after 53-man rosters were set? That's possible. Could it have happened before 53-man rosters were set? That's also possible. Could it have happened in terms of them agreeing, hey, we'll give you 2 first-round picks and one of these 3 players? We're going to keep talking about it while we work on the contract for Micah, the one he ultimately got. All of that internet crashed. I think I'm back. Okay. So apologies for the slight snafu there. We don't know the exact details in terms of when on Tuesday the Cowboys and Packers agreed to this deal, but it does at least, generate the question for me. If the Cowboys, they may not have, but if they knew that they were going to be getting Kenny Clark as a result of this Micah Parsons trade on Tuesday, then why did they keep Mozzie Smith? Why did they keep Perrion Winfrey? Why did they do that? Maybe they want to keep all of them no matter what. I don't know, but these are factors and variables that keep popping out. And as we're trying to kind of put together the paper trail on all this, it doesn't. We are good. Okay, we're good. I think we're good. I don't know what's going on with the internet right now. This is a scary situation. I feel like it could go at any second. But So who knows what the Cowboys agreed to specifically with the Packers on Tuesday, but the fact that they were having this conversation also calls into question the flight that Micah Parsons took, that we were told or that was reported to be for a second opinion. If the trade was agreed to, even in a general sense on Tuesday, then it stands to reason that that was not exactly what it was reported to be. But I don't know. Again, the paper, there's a lot of evidence here, and the explanations aren't necessarily answering all of it. It might answer some of it, but it doesn't answer. You would think in a situation like this, we've now reached the end of the road, so we would be able to reverse track and say, okay, well, this meant this, and that meant this, and this meant that, and et cetera, et cetera. But we can't exactly do that right now. There's still too many unknowns. Let's see here. AJ says, RJ, they signed Tyler Bland and Pickens now that this has passed. AJ, they should have signed these players months ago. They could have done that. They could have signed Micah and alleviated salary cap space and signed them months ago. They could sign them today. They should. My prediction would be that they won't, and that they will blame these players in the offseason, and they will say that they can't do anything in free agency because they're working on those deals. Ron the Don says the Beats were literally checking them last night and like deer in headlights, LOL. That's right. For anyone who hasn't watched the Cowboys press conference to announce the Micah Parsons trade, they were checked. Their feet were held to the fire by members of the local media. Every single person in there asked incredible question after incredible question, and the Cowboys front office were like, why do y'all, what do you mean? The internet, there we're back again. I don't know what's going on with the internet here, but again, members of the local media totally held the Cowboys' feet to the fire. For those of you who say that the Cowboys aren't asked hard questions, I would invite you to go watch the press conference that they had on Thursday evening announcing the Micah Parsons trade. They were asked hard question after hard question after hard question, and they just stammered and, tripped over their words like I just did right now and had no idea what to say. And the reason for that is because there is nothing to say. There is no way to logically justify what you just did, which is why if you want to stand on business and you want to say, hey, we run the team, we made this decision, we did this, you all can kick rocks, that would suck and be kind of rude, but at least that would be honest and have a semblance of logic to it as opposed to all the crap the Cowboys tried to spew on Thursday evening. Let's see here. Lauren says people thought the Red Sox would collapse after they traded Tavares. This is an interesting example. I think I didn't expect that today, so I appreciate you, Lawrence. Musa says my connection is about as good as Jerry Jones. I don't exactly know what's going on here. This is strange. Arliss says the worst trade in the history of the franchise, worse than signing Roy Williams, Joey Galloway. No faith in Jerry or Stephen Jones. This sucks. Musa says they are just trying to PR their way out of this mess and the incompetence created. I have one more point to get to today, but I want to say this now. I've been saying this for a while. It is giving the Cowboys a pass to call them incompetent. And I know that it's a popular thing to say that. I know it's very popular to say that they're dumb. To say that they're incompetent is to act as if they're trying. All right. That incompetence would be preferred at this point in time. Think about how far we have sunk that incompetence would be a preferable option to who they are. They're not incompetent. Nobody could be this incompetent. And I know you're rolling your eyes at that, but that's the reality of it. I'm not saying they're geniuses. I'm not saying they're forward thinking because they clearly aren't, but they're not incompetent. What they are is floating in the wind. What they are is living today, and they'll live tomorrow. And if it contradicts or conflicts with today and what they said or what they do or say the day after, it doesn't matter. They're not incompetent. Incompetence would be preferred to who they are. Who they are is random, however they feel, and everybody else has to deal with the consequences of it. I cannot believe it. I would prefer incompetence to what they have going on, but that's simply the reality of who the Dallas Cowboys are in 2025. Let's see here. Karam says, I want to see how they rebuild this thing. Okay, let's get to my last point here today. Something I'm really excited about is the Cowboys having multiple first-round draft picks. We all have a lot of emotions here. We're pissed off, we're angry, our pets' heads are falling off. I am, in a vacuum, excited about the team having multiple first-round draft picks. It will make draft time very fun, obviously. So we're certainly hoping that that's a long ways away from now. Nobody wants to simulate through the season as frustrated as we are in this particular moment. But the Cowboys, for anyone who's unaware, have not had multiple first-round draft picks in a very, very, very long time. In fact, I know some of you are younger. You may have been very young when this happened. It was in 2008. The Cowboys, in case anybody forgot, during the 2007 NFL draft, traded back with the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland went up to select, at the time, Notre Dame quarterback Brady Quinn, and Dallas obtained Cleveland's first-round pick in 2008. The Cowboys, and lo and behold, Cleveland almost made the playoffs playoffs, of course, that year in 2007. Came very close, but ultimately didn't wind up doing so. That was a great year for Derek Anderson and all of the other Browns in a very early bright spot for the new Cleveland franchise. They're certainly searching for those. But that being said, I bring that up to say it has been a minute since the Cowboys had multiple first-round picks in a singular draft. 2008, the last instance. And you may be asking yourself, who were the players the Cowboys took in that draft? RJ's got you. Don't worry. The Cowboys have not selected twice in a singular first round of an NFL draft since 2008. As noted, one of those picks belonged to the Cleveland Browns, and they used one of them. In fact, they used that first one that belonged to Cleveland to select Arkansas running back Felix Jones, and then they took South Florida corner Mike Jenkins with their own pick because the 2007 Cowboys were bounced in the divisional round. I don't need to tell you all about that because we all remember. I don't bring this up to say, oh man, the last time the Cowboys had multiple first-round draft picks, it went poorly, so they're clearly going to botch these. That's not my point. It's simply to tell you this is what happened the last time they had multiple first-round draft picks. In terms of modern history, and it's crazy to say that 2009 to now is modern, but they haven't had a situation like this. We don't know what it's going to look like. Are they going to package them? They're going to trade up? Are they going to trade down? If I had my druthers, if I had my way, if I could offer a point of advice, I would say you have to trade down. That would be my immediate preference. And obviously that's having no idea how the season goes or how the draft cycle is going to look and all this type of stuff. But generally, it would be awesome if these two first-round draft picks, obviously from Green Bay in 2026 and 2027, became more picks and more picks and more picks. I want these first-round draft picks from the Packers to be seeds that the Cowboys plant that become trees that ultimately grow more picks and more picks and more picks that they can trade and turn into this and that. And maybe one of them is jumping up in a draft. Maybe one of them is a veteran who's on an expiring deal. Something like that. It would be, and I hope we don't have to come back to this conversation then, it would be the most boring thing and boring utilization and maybe the most improper utilization of these picks to just sit there and select. I would love to see the Cowboys get a little bit more creative, but we're obviously a long ways away from finding that out. Arla says, do you trust them to build the team the correct way? You just said incompetence would be a step up. I think that I think it's the NFL, and I think anyone can win the Super Bowl. It's the ultimate league of parity, right? Like, you know, we all follow different sports, whoever you are. Maybe you follow, you know, Major League Baseball. Maybe you follow the NBA or the Premier League or whatever, right? Like there's no other league where you can go from worst to first, you know, as quickly as you can in the NFL. In fact, what's it been, like 17 years in a row that a team has gone from worst to first in a singular division. So I think that they could totally get lucky. You know what I mean? Like they could totally get lucky if they have the right help. And so I think if we define that there's only one way to do this, and if they don't do that they're doing it incorrectly, I think that would be an improper evaluation of what's happening here. So I guess my long way of answering this is I kind of trust anyone to do this. It is difficult to, you know, mess up having this many picks. And it's why, you know, a lot of people like to say things along the lines of, oh, the Cowboys are so good at drafting in the first round. Yeah, well, I mean, like you kind of should be, right? like you should be pretty decent at that. It's difficult, but it's not the hardest thing in the world. Like that's why we ask you to have more success on day 3 and certainly in the second round at least. But having right now on paper 4 first-round draft picks to the next 2 drafts certainly theoretically sets them up to position themselves to compete and contend for a long time. Now, do they handle that the right way? I don't know that you can fully trust them to do that because like all of this. But on paper, they have a chance and they still have, you know, quarterback figured out for the foreseeable future. They have wide receiver 1 figured out for the foreseeable future. And those 2 factors can carry you a long way in the NFL. I think it's the other AJ, says, my optimism is that they're trying to shake things up instead of going chalk by paying their best players max money just to go 9-8 or 10-7 and get destroyed if they happen to make the playoffs. I get this perspective, other AJ, and I'm not trying to be a downer. I would have an easier time jumping on board with this perspective if they had done this in March or April, right? Like if they had done this in March or April, we could sit there and we could say, oh, they clearly have a plan. They're clearly building towards this. They're clearly doing X, Y, and Z. But the fact that they did this at the 11th hour, a week before the season begins, suggests that it isn't a part of some grand plan, suggests that it was just a momentary decision because they got mad and caught feelings or whatever and wanted to prove a point and banish Micah or whatever. So I just have a difficult time believing any one thing is what they're trying to do, given when they did the Micah trade specifically. Ron Dedon says also, I don't know who has the Spyro profile picture, but very nice. Just platinum the first 2 games on PCLO. That's awesome. I'm happy you guys are making friends. Okay. I think that's it for today's discussion. We're doing our best to kind of put the Micah thing to bed. It's difficult to just say, oh, it happened yesterday, it's gone forever. He was one of the best players that the Dallas Cowboys have ever seen, and obviously only played 4 seasons for the franchise. But it is going to reverberate for some time, and certainly in a month, the Cowboys are going to see him. That's going to be quite the weekend. It was already, I forget off the top of my head. I know I've seen that like tweet or TikTok a million times that the weekend in question, week 4 in the NFL, I forget what the college football matchups are. There's like, I think the Chiefs and Bills play. Obviously, you've got this game now on Sunday Night Football. It's the Ryder Cup. It's going to be an incredible weekend that is going to be capped off by some serious drama. So I'm looking forward to it. Got an interview with Dave Hellman of The Athletic, formerly of DallasCowboys.com, that will drop on the channel on Saturday. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't yet, please like the video, subscribe, blog on the Boys YouTube channel. I've got videos coming out each and every single day talking about this team that we all hate but still love. So looking forward to sharing this season with you, because today is technically Monday with the Cowboys playing on Thursday in week 1. Today is technically the Monday in terms of the process of the week. And so we'll have all sorts of stuff, obviously getting ready for week 1 against the Eagles. Then in the aftermath, we'll have a live postgame show. Really looking forward to all of that. You can follow me on social media and whatnot. I'm on X, Instagram, and Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Speaking of, RJ.Ochoa is how you can email me as well. Like the video, subscribe, leave a comment down below. I'll do my very best to answer those as well. But thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out, and we will see you next time.